Why did we camp in the mosquito swamp at Nelson Lakes?
Because we had no idea, and if we did have an idea and still did it, we would be classified as stupid.
Shots with the beats that are battle. When I get in your head, my thoughts become lead. Pipes that navigate the seas that are bred. Straight through the bloodstream, try to come clean. Got intervened by dreams through a schemes with a 360-degree turn on the globe. But now you got me running around my area code. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. Overdose and I'm in the zone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. Overdose and I'm in the zone. From the stem of my pen to exert energies that revert from its natural source. In reverse, I take the opposite course to avoid the steroids and inject to my record. Cause it's a style they neglected by the natural physique on my way to the mental peak. That's when I flip the let my lyrics leak as the mountain grows steep. I take one last look and take a giant leap. Word up, I take a giant leap. I said what? I take a giant leap. You got me what? I take a giant leap. You got me what? I take a what? I take a I'm just running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. Overdose and I'm in the zone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. You got me running in a cyclone. Overdose and I'm in the zone.
He lives in Pennsylvania and surrounded by liberals. Deep down inside, he knows he loves Trump.
Dan's unique.
He's got a mind of his own.
And independent.
He's not his father.
So it was a very difficult child to raise, but he turned out okay.
Biohaz Dan.
I made my own nickname.
He gave that name to himself.
He invented it himself.
It was my gamer tag.
I think that was his gamer tag.
I think that was from Halo.
And I also remember he had a Yamaha that had a Biohazard sticker on there. For a long time, he's been all about representing the Biohaz. Yeah, that was definitely a name that he gave himself, but fits him perfectly. I have this great memory of Bio. I just had this feeling, and I should ask this kid if he wants to hang out with me. So he had his license, he had a little Toyota. He came and picked me up, and the first thing we did is we went to the mall parking lot. And he had his car in neutral, revving up his motor, and then he threw it in the drive and then go, beep.
Yeah, my goal is to create a company where I can hire my friends so we can all live together. Right, Chad? Sounds good?
That's the dream.
That's the dream. I'll pay you twice what you're making now.
I'm in.
All those years of school have warped his brain.
Yes. Actually having to apply logic to one's beliefs, so warping. And requiring data from reputable sources and not Newsweek.
I get my news from Fox.
Yeah,
You
can
take it
get a
in
degree
college,
in journalism.
so you can get really warped. That's
Always has been.
existentialism. New York doesn't exist because I'm not there.
Larry, hug him right
I
now.
give him a hug all the time. He doesn't deserve one right now.
Brandon Ridgway, now that's a man that's strong as an ox.
First memory would have been Boy Scouts, and Brandon did not want to wear a shirt.
Got his own unique style, and he's got gifts and things that nobody else has.
Yeah, he had this like mischievous smile or something. He always had something going on. Like he always had a knife in his pocket or a lighter or something. I'm like, oh, just like, what are you doing? And like he'd like show me a lighter. It's like, oh wow, cool.
Brandon's gonna be buried with his Harley.
I always was like the last one hiking, especially with the altitude. I was kind of like in the back by myself. There wasn't really anybody. And Brandon had waited for me. and he waited like behind a tree, and then he popped out of this tree. I was like, whoa, you're here. And then he just hiked with me the whole way back through Yosemite, and I thought that was really nice because it was nice to have a buddy to hike with.
I loved Bob's early morning yells.
Has the best morning alarm scream that I've ever heard.
I don't know if he's part Confederate or it's the rebel yell.
The bellow that wakes everyone up in the morning.
Everyone's going to do their best impression of the Bob yell. And Bob's going to judge the winner of who does it the best.
Yeah. That's better. Now we get 2 chances. That was a good one. Ooh, that's a good one.
You want to try again? Was that it?
No, we carry on.
It's the Mexican version.
That's Mexican version.
Potential.
In the background. That was good, Alex.
I'm gonna have to give this one to Daniel Lloyd.
Okay, very cool. So Dan's the winner. Dan, you'll get a prize. We'll figure out what that prize is later.
My name is Jonathan Lalone, professional Chad Annoyer agitator.
Well, when he was young, he always used to crack us up because he would be filthy.
Being covered in sand in 3rd grade.
How dirty he always was. Like every hike.
He'd be rolling around the campfire ring where all the charcoal is.
Didn't care what he looked like. Didn't care if he got dirty.
How he could get so dirty in such a short period of time.
He just loved the dirt.
A few people have brought up the scorpion on your leg. Tell me what happened.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
John had just kind of plopped his body down in the middle of the dirt.
Playing in the dirt and with rocks and leaves just like a little kid.
And all of a sudden my legs has like something poking in it.
And next thing you know, he's got a scorpion on his leg.
And he picked up a scorpion.
And I opened up my leg and this scorpion was in there.
He didn't get stung by some miracle.
It was so funny. It was like Total Globe.
How did Globe get his nickname?
One day I asked Brandon to cut my hair.
I used to cut everybody's hair in high school.
You know, we used to get our haircuts pretty short.
And when he cut it without fading the sides, such that it accentuated my already round face.
And I think we're just standing around just rubbing his globy head.
The Asians have round faces.
After all was said and done, his head was perfectly spherical.
And then Brandon said, hey, it's round like a globe. But then it became round from the perspective of the globe.
And he loves it. He loves when everybody calls him Globe. This is probably not the best thing to do before we sing a hymn, but I've been commissioned to do what is commonly known as a roast. The rules are very liberal. Basically, I'll stand up here and make fun of everybody.
Well, Dad can't be here.
So you guys will laugh at and hopefully not get offended.
Yeah.
Too much. If we do get offended, we'll sing a hymn and bring the spirit back. It's been awesome hanging out with Larry this trip, even though he's super old and slow and stuff.
I'm getting my knife out.
Okay. So the cool thing that we've all been talking about with Larry is that he is a great dad. He always talks super highly about his kids, and he's got one son in particular that we've spent a lot of time with that has just been amazing, who has just accomplished so much in his life, and that son is Tom. Now Tom, he was in charge of cooking breakfast this morning. I was pretty excited because as his job, he watches a boiler. But it took him over 30 minutes to boil a pot of water. So, Daniel, it's great that you came all the way from the East Coast. So that you guys know, Daniel's been in school for like 15 years. The only thing that he's accomplished is getting more gold stars than Billy the kindergartner. Paul, you guys don't know this, but me and Paul used to be home teaching companions. I have a story about that. One time he picked me up and his, what was it, a white Nissan
Pickup, yeah.
Is that what it was? Okay. So I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I look over and I say, hey, Paul, he had a Post-it on his dash. There was nothing written on it. I said, hey, Paul, what's up with that Post-it? He goes, oh, it's to hide the check engine light. So instead of taking his truck in, he just covers it up.
I forgot about that. You're right.
So, Brian, to be honest, I love what you guys do. I use Amazon Prime all the time, but every time I order it, FedEx comes way faster than you guys, man.
Here's mine.
Dan is in the Air Force, right? You've been in for how long now?
5 years.
5 years and still can't fly a plane. Hiram, man, you did great, buddy. 7 years old. But I can't be mean to you because you're amazing. So, whoa.
We don't have all night.
Globe lives in this place called Tehachapi, right?
I thought it was Tijuana.
Yeah, dude, Tijuana. It's the same thing. Gerbo, the table you made is great. We love it. But you disappointed us by not making it out of duct tape. President, the only thing is this whole trip, nobody's seen your legs.
Yeah.
Chad, hey, you're from Detroit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that town sucks. A lot of people like to go there until they get shot. And finally, Bob. I'm surprised you don't have poison oak yet.
Yeah. Still time.
So the thing is with Bob, it's not that he got lost all the time. It's just that he got lost every time. One time he was in the pulpit and the famous phrase is, if I was a drinking man. But all the times that I've got lost with Bob has turned me into a drinking man. Thank you.
Brandon, thank you for your jokes. They were on point, they were accurate, and they were better looking than your face. All right.
Chad pretends to like Michigan too much, so we all know he really hates Michigan and is there because Nisha loves it.
We've talked at length about my first time with Chad.
My first memory of Globe was meeting him at Ben Martin's birthday party.
My mom told me to go over to Ben Martin's house because they were having some sort of party or...
He was wearing a brand new outfit that his mom had bought him for the birthday party.
I had my brand new clothes on.
And I told him that our ancestors had been enemies.
Our ancestors have been at war and now we're going to be at war.
For thousands of years and we must continue the fight.
And he started throwing water balloons at me. I was like, don't throw that. And then he threw more and like it got on me and I think the hose came on.
And apparently I sprayed him with a hose.
And my brand new clothes got all stretched out. I remember the collar was like down to here.
For the record, I was there.
That's not constructed.
I was there.
I believe you were there.
I remember your shirt being soaked.
I think Brandon was there, but he wasn't as mean as Chad that was that day. Yeah.
I think you got in a water balloon fight, but I don't think that Chad attacked you and ambushed you.
That sounds like Chad.
No, he did.
Also talk about hot sauce in the eye, bullets exploding in vacuum cleaners that saved his life. And I'm not making any of that up. It's all gerbil stuff.
Alex Espinosa is just like his father. He's a very hard worker and he's strong.
He loves life and he's probably the best husband of anybody I know.
Seems to be able to fix about anything or do about anything.
Jerby wishes everything was like his cabin, that he could pay whatever he wanted per night.
The early memories of gerbil have to do with duct tape, cars that were pieced together from other cars, and a multitude of nicknames.
How many nicknames? A lot.
He's probably had 14 different nicknames.
Oh, you guys called him Jerb, that's right. I never could figure that out, but I kind of went with it.
Oh, because I was super smart and my wheels were always turning.
Gerb comes from the fact that his brain is run by a gerbil.
The concept of his mind being a gerbil.
There's a peg leg gerbil.
or the gerbil had a peg leg.
And every so often this gerbil, which also has a peg leg,
and when he was having trouble with his thoughts,
the peg leg gets caught in the wheel, which is why gerbil can't think clearly sometimes or has brainiac ideas. He's also been known as Magical Gerbil, Magical
Gerbil, and Magical Gerbil.
Camping, his name was Mom.
Mom.
In seminary, his name was Herb.
Herbal, the knife, Jerbish, the eye, Eunice.
Man, that's got to be like, what, 5 or 6 names already?
I still have Magical Gerbil at Yahoo and Gmail. I own it.
Gerb just has this way about him that people love to give him nicknames. He just pulls it out of people. There's this game that we used to play. We'd pick any character we want, and Gerbil would pick this eyeball that had legs. And I mean, that pretty much sums up everything you need to know about Gerbil. That he could have picked any character he wanted, but he picked an eyeball with legs.
See, first memory of Gerbil, I was sitting behind him in primary, and he let out the loudest fart I can remember against the metal chair and then laughed about it.
But I do remember hearing about him before I even met him. There was a scout camp at the Stake Center.
Like a scout thing at the church, and you're doing all these different things, and one of the stations was sharpening an axe with a file.
And all I heard was some kid was sharpening an axe and sliced his finger open.
You know, I'm bleeding like crazy. And
who would do that to themselves?
And I start going into shock.
And then I think it was just a couple weeks after that, I met Gerb. And he had a Band-Aid wrapped around his finger, and we got to talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm that kid.
Legendary Bob.
Young one, why have you come so far?
What is the purpose of life?
The purpose is to keep going.
Oh, Legendary Bob. I've traveled very far. I've had this problem for many years. Every time I go to the drive-thru at Taco Bell, they mess up my order. What do I do about it?
Just deal with it! You have reached me.
Legendary Bob! I've climbed 10 mountain peaks. Someone told me to drink all my water before the last trail crossing. I have one question I've been burning in my mind. How do I get the powdery lumps out of my pancakes in the morning?
It is not as hard as you're making it sound. You've got to stir at least 10 times. What do you want?
Legendary Bob, I grovel at your feet. I must know, on this journey, will I find a crystal of my own?
You must dig and continue digging.
Thank you.
Until your hands are raw.
Is there a direction you can send me towards?
Up.
Bob, I have but one question. It's plagued me my whole life. Why?
That's it?
Yeah, I want to know why.
For my own satisfaction. That's why. I will need to be carried back down the mountain because I cannot stretch my legs anymore.
Oh, great, legendary and powerful Bob. Is it lunchtime yet?
It is lunchtime.
Why were we lost so much?
That would be Bob's fault. So that's not my fault.
Was Hurricane Deck the worst hike you've ever been on?
Probably for risking people's lives, I would say that it was.
Hurricane Deck was an interesting trial.
That trip was a lesson in preparedness.
It was poorly planned, I think.
Hurricane Deck was a disaster. So we went into the Los Padres National Forest after the El Nino year, and because it had been so humid and so much moisture had fallen, the plants, the chaparral, everything had grown like crazy.
And the trail was overgrown. I was wearing shorts.
That we had to cut the trail in order to get through it.
So these sagebrushes were scratching my legs, and they hold you back and they make it 10 times harder to hike.
By the time we made it up to the top of Hurricane Deck, we found that we had expended a lot of energy. We'd used up all of our water.
We had drank all our water by the time we were at the top of the ridge.
They didn't bring enough water.
Lack of water.
So it was like 100 degrees.
So I mean, that coupled with the heat.
We were instructed to drop our packs.
It was decided that we'd go down at the other side of the mountain and try and get some water.
My son Justin and Bishop Ridgway at that time actually stayed up because they were in such bad shape.
Blisters began to form at the back of my mouth because of dehydration. Neither Justin nor I were doing very well.
It was a pretty desperate time in some ways.
These good young men leaders hacked through the other side of the mountain to get down to the water.
My dad, Paul, and others, they went back up and they saved President and Justin Lott.
Then they hiked back up and basically rescued Justin and me. I don't recommend ever having that kind of hike. Then a special team of young men and leaders called the
Pack Extraction Special Team,
the Pests, went up the mountain for the sole purpose of picking up the packs.
This wasn't a trip that was fun. It was all work, just going to retrieve these packs. I remember we were sitting down on a trail, just taking a break.
I remember I'm sitting there as we're kind of taking a break.
In the first 5 seconds that I was sitting there, this huge fly came and landed on me.
The flies were crazy.
And normally when a fly lands on my arm, I'll just try to blow it out. And he just stayed right there. So I was like, okay. So then I flicked them off and it hurt my nail.
And it would hurt like someone bit you.
They would fly in there and it seemed like they'd bite you and then they'd twist.
They took chunks of meat off of you.
What's up with these flies?
Blood coming out of your arm.
And then Paul opening up Nathan Crandall's backpack.
I couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like it. To pull out a glass platter and a bunch of bananas and a 5-pound bag of granulated sugar.
I just told that story to my elders quorum about 2 weeks ago, and they couldn't believe it.
I was the smartest man in the room because I didn't go to Hurricane Deck.
Bob didn't go on that one.
I didn't get you lost on Hurricane Deck.
Bob always got lost every time I went with him.
Why were we always lost? Maybe because I didn't really think about some of the places we were going that much.
Two is I don't think anybody ever checked the weather.
I think they know vaguely where they're supposed to be going.
We're unprepared a lot of times.
They never seem to use compasses, maps, GPS, or anything that could ensure that we arrive at our location.
We depended on old men's minds to remember where things were instead of actually a map.
When you're going the wrong direction, well, you don't even know you're going the wrong direction. We weren't always lost.
Well, there was the time when the Kern River was raging and we
hiked around the Kern River, really rigorous hikes.
We hiked down this crazy cliff.
And we were all walking across a little tiny ledge above the raging river.
And then if you slipped, you'd slip into this raging torrent of a river and never be seen again.
Luckily, nobody died.
It wasn't necessarily lost. I knew where I was, and I knew I shouldn't be there, but it was too late.
A lot of hard hiking on our hikes.
Nobody else has gotten hurt on any trips either, which is kind of amazing in itself.
Yeah, that one.
And BB died.
There was another one you guys know I almost killed my dog on.
Came back, died, pooped, died, pooped. Yeah.
Killing your dog is not as nearly as critical as killing your bishop and another scout.
What the heck are you doing there?
Stay, my dog. You have lived a long and prosperous life. Now we sacrifice you at dog food.
Don't really do it, Paul. I know we were feeling a moment there.
Were you ever secretly very worried?
There's been times.
The two big hikes, which are the two Mount Whitney hikes.
A couple of Mount Whitney trips, serious doubts I had I could make it.
Which was seriously the most physically challenging hike I think that any of us had been on.
There was a lot of pain going on that I didn't want to show. And other ailments were hitting the group. 3 or 4 guys were getting altitude sickness and having all different symptoms, and that was kind of scary.
How did you end up on that cliff on Mount Whitney?
That cliff on Mount Whitney was not planned and was a mistake on my part.
Oh, I thought he was crazy, but I was so tired I couldn't go help him.
But I also was very nervous about it and recognized that it could mean great catastrophe.
And he just kept coming down that cliff and he kept getting into deeper and deeper trouble.
If you only knew what I just went through.
Bob, you're going to put your hands behind your back.
Now hug him from backwards.
Yeah. Oh. There you go. Okay.
And the hike begins. They are hiking along. After many hours of hiking, Bob and Paul decide that they need a little snack break.
Hope your arm. Ah, yeah.
I hope you washed your hands, Bob.
I don't like Whoa, hey! What's out there over there? Oh my goodness.
Paul is noticing that Bob's skin looks a little rough and needs to be smoothed out with baby powder. Alright, since they've been sitting so long, the mosquitoes are swarming. You want to make sure you got those off each other.
Come on, brother. Orale, Bob. Nelson Lakes looks amazing. Hey! This is Cliff Lake, Paul. What are you talking about? Oh, no, we lost again. I say. Bob and Paul.
I'm going to say Bob and Paul because I feel like they're like Adam and Eve. It's just like they go together. You can't talk about one without the other.
100 miles an hour switching lanes like whoa.
What is Paul Milne's ethnicity?
Paul Milne's ethnicity.
Oh, boy, you asked a good one.
That is a difficult question. I've always wondered with that myself.
Ambiguous.
What is he? He's got
There's definitely some mixing going on.
part dog.
Quarter buffalo.
Is Asian.
Tinge of Asian in him.
It's Chinese specifically.
Keep hearing he has Oriental.
Asian something.
South African, perhaps.
Native American.
Heard something about Alaska.
Easter Island.
I never think about somebody being half something or...
He's Mexicano.
It's like a Tootsie Pop. The world may never know.
For some reason, it seems like Bob and Paul have always been in Scouts.
When I first moved to Santa Maria, I became the Young Men's President late 1980s, and Bob Floyd became my second counselor. And since that time, we've just played musical chairs within the Young Men's Organization.
Bob Floyd.
Bob, legendary Bob.
Some people call me Legendary Bob.
I'm able to go backpacking because I try hard. Bob does it because he's just a natural at it, and there's a difference.
Grizzly bear, wild hair.
You guys know how he puts flowers in his hat.
Happy all the time.
He sings and whistles. He just has fun.
People like to be with him because of his disposition.
Very loyal to you guys, to the youth.
Great leader and great person.
He's incredibly strong like an ox, and he's incredibly nice. And that's a good thing, because if he was a mean person, we'd all be dead.
Paul, my memory of Paul, no matter what and forever, is that long sleeve scout shirt.
Good humor.
Extremely funny because he says exactly what's on his mind.
He tells it like it is.
Because everybody seems to get their information off the internet, which is stupid.
A genuinely good person.
He's always been by my side when I needed him there.
He's got an outlook in life that I love, and I actually wish I was more like him.
What else can I say about Paul? He's the man.
When I was called as bishop, one of my two main goals was to stack the young men's program and the young women's program with the best leaders that we had in the ward who could connect with the youth. And that proved to be particularly true with the young men. We had the best of the best. Bob and Paul Milne were the two mainstay leaders that were always involved and always called to the young men's program in some fashion. I felt confident on the adventures that we had the very best leaders, the very best planning.
I felt it was my calling. It requires the time.
First, now realizing how much time they really took.
I'd get like 4 weeks off, and 2 of those weeks were always spent with the young men.
I'm blown away with how many hours I remember they gave toward us while having their own families.
Most people don't know how much time is involved.
And we all, I think, feel in our hearts a debt of gratitude and a little bit of wonder at the sacrifice that they made. And we look inside ourselves and we ask if we would be willing to make that same sacrifice in their shoes.
They were 100% committed 100% of the time.
Nope, I wouldn't quit. I won't quit.
I was thinking a Dogtooth Peak hike.
It's 32 miles in and 32 miles out.
Anyone could have died on many of these campouts, but it's because of how chaotic and insane and even dangerous some of these trips were that they're some of the best memories of our lives.
I think whenever you share experiences together, you're genuinely going to become friends.
We bonded, and those hikes were the glue.
Whenever you do something difficult, you develop a close camaraderie with them.
Even when we get together today after all these years, we find that it's just as if we had gone camping the week before. All of those feelings, all those strong relationships are still there, and they come back in an instant, which I think is a sign of true friendship.
When you do something hard, you tell yourself you'll never do it again, but it's kind of like a woman giving birth, you know, she ends up doing it again.
Man, any high adventure was my favorite just because I was with my guys doing more than we thought we could do.
And I think it also set an example for the young men that when we serve in the church, we really ought to enjoy what we're doing.
They have taught me joy in service.
And I'm grateful that I was able to go through the youth program while they were called to that.
This is a unique group, very unique group.
These were our youth leaders when we were 15, 16, and now 20 years later we're getting back together with them. And nobody can believe that. Nobody has that kind of bond. That is just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Oh, baby.
They're animals, and they hike and they hike and they hike and they hike, and holy cow, now that I am 30, I am seriously impressed.
The best themed trip was Hold to the Rod up backside of Half Dome, and that was definitely an inspired brainchild of Bob Floyd. He came up with that idea and it was perfect.
I don't have no trouble with you.
Especially when we did the Christmas tree thing, that was huge for me because I got to ride in the truck with him. And for lunchtime, he bought us in and out. And it didn't seem like we were doing work. It seemed like we were just hanging out. It was just another day that we got to spend together. That's really a big talent that Bob has.
Now that you heard my charming voice.
Those are my memories of Bob. Is he always makes the group happy.
I estimate I've done about 25 high adventures, and each one of those is probably on average of about 5 or 6 days. So, and there's probably equally as many days just for overnighters throughout the year and throughout the years.
I'm English, Scottish, Irish. My great-great-grandmother was from India, one of the first Indian converts. That's how I have a slightly olive skin.
Oh no, just dance if you want up in.
Well, Brian's King Rooster. I don't know. He's got a big chicken coop, I guess.
You can see, FBI, don't you be watching me.
Now, Jonathan Lalone is an adult. I have complete respect for him. I really admire what he's done.
Globe's the corporate shill, but we all love him.
Radios play this all day, every day.
Memories of Chad was he always had extra weight.
Even on Mount Whitney, took a huge camcorder in order to document the hike.
Whether it was a camera, back when they were not light.
Sing it, girls!
And it was down through Poison Oak and Ivy, and we ended up going through these little ravines and ended up coming out on the road by some farm.
Too, you tend to forget the hard things about it, and that's a good thing.
Coming off a Half Dome when we had the ultimate feast, and to this day I don't think food ever tasted that good. And then me and Brandon and Alex, we found this super comfortable rock. It was like the most comfortable rock in the world, and we slept on that thing we probably stayed on that thing for hours.
And that's what happened with the Young Men Leaders. Not only did we truly come to love the boys and appreciate them as individuals and what they brought to each of the activities and to the program, we felt the same way about each other as adult leaders. Found that there was just a lot of camaraderie.
And then lift up your...
Oh, hey Dan, how's it going?
Why you? That's the end of my testimony. What more can be said?
You know he can't say the name of JC.
John Scratch.